Greetings my guzzlers. We're going to make some cookies. I've made lots of different types of cookies, so I'm always on the lookout for something different, something unusual. And then I stumbled across these special cookies which are named after that special lady in my life. And even though this will go out too late for it, coming up is Valentine's Day, so I thought, how can I not make the cookie named after that special lady in my life? So we're making some sandies, and this particular recipe is pecan sandies, not pecan, pecan sandies for that special lady in my life. So these pecan sandies need pecans in it. Now you can do what we're going to do, chop them all up and incorporate them into the dough, if you like, or the batter, or whatever you want to call it, or you can make them plain as such and then put a half, or the pecan half on top. So I've got in there 150 grams of pecans, and I've taken, I had some spares, so I put them aside. So some of them, actually, let's make it 11, are going to get a pecan on top as well. So our first job is to get these chopped up. Now I'm going to do this with a hand whip mixer, so you're going to need a bowl to mix it all in. You're going to need to put your oven on at about 175-ish, okay, and some baking trays lined with parchment or whatever. And then the only other ingredients, you're going to want some plain flour, 240 grams, a quarter teaspoon of salt, 240 grams of unsalted softened butter. Mine's a little bit on the other side because I forgot to take it out this morning. 50 grams of icing sugar, 100 grams of granulated sugar, teaspoon of vanilla extract, and then, like I say, the pecans. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to move that mixer out of the way, and I'm going to get these chopped up. I'm just debating whether to do it in my blitzer, but I'm going to be careful because I don't really want to grind them up too much. So these sandies are a type of shortbread cookie, and actually in France they're known as sables. It's to do with, I believe, the texture. Sable, well, again, my pronunciation might be a bit crap for that, although I do know a bit of French, means sanded. And so, like I say, it's named after the sort of fine texture, although these pecan ones aren't going to be that fine, are they? Probably got lumps of pecan in it. And hence they're called sables. Now, they're believed to actually have originated in France, okay, even though they perhaps are more common over here in the, oh, I say over here, we're not in the bloody States, I'm in England. I was just going to say over in the States, but they are believed to have originated in Caen, in Normandy, France. And I'll tell you an interesting little story about Caen, which I originally stumbled across, well, Caen and this story, one of the times I went over to France and we had the ferry that took us over to Caen in Normandy. So I might tell you a bit about that story in a minute, because it's a very famous story and some of you might actually want to read up about it. I know I did. Anyway, we'll get all these chopped first. Right, there's some pecans chopped up. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the butter into there along with the icing sugar and the caster sugar, or you can use granulated sugar, it's up to you. And now we just want to cream all this together. This is where I'm now going to get clouds of icing sugar. Well, that butter mixture is just about there, so before going any further, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 1/4 teaspoon of fine salt, and we're just going to add that to the flour. Okay, I'll just get now you could whisk this together, but we're going to be chucking it all in there in a minute anyway. So I'm going to continue mixing that for a little bit longer, and then I'm going to add a teaspoon of vanilla extract and then just beat that in. That's the vanilla extract all mixed in there, and so what we're going to do now is just add a little bit of that flour and gradually keep beating all that in. So I was telling you about Carl. Can't really tell you when it's doing this, can I? Can't hear me properly. So went with on a trip across to France, and we went across on the ferry from Portsmouth, England, and that goes across to Caen, whereas the other main route, which is the busier route, is the Dover-Calais. But the Caen takes you, the Caen route is basically to one of the D-Day beaches, Dunkirk. Well, very there, but that's where, you know, we're talking about. But Caen itself had a very important role. That was said lady in question come interrupting me mid-flow then. So, as I was saying, we'd arrived in Caen. I'm not sure if it was actually on the way home. We stopped over in Caen, or it might have been on the way out because we were camping at that time. But anyway, we went into the village or town of Caen and come across this bridge, this sort of metal, what was turned out to be a lifting bridge, and it had a little plaque on it, and it was saying something about this was the famous Pegasus bridge. Well, didn't know anything about it, but many years later discovered the story of Pegasus Bridge, and it was as part of the D-Day landings, when obviously they'd come to liberate France. Caen and the bridge over the river was an important route which they knew the Germans had control of, and if there was any hint there was any invasion coming, they'd blow the bridge up, and that obviously would prevent, you know, vehicles, tanks, etc. to get across the river. So it was a very strategic bridge. Right, I'm going to get the rest of this flour in. So that's all the flour in. Now the final thing to go in is to get our pecans mixed in. So anyway, if you want to really know the full story of Pegasus Bridge, you can check out a book. I can't remember the guy who wrote it. But essentially, they flew in on gliders, so they'd be silent, landed almost next to the bridge, almost next to the Germans who were patrolling. And when I say next to, pretty damn next to, and then they were able to capture the bridge and the town, liberate the town, and then prevent the Germans retaking the bridge, so that in the morning after D-Day landings the bridge was intact. And every year on the anniversary of that day, the survivors would gather on the bridge, and the owner of the cafe that's on the end of the bridge, which we saw when we were there but at the time didn't know any of this, would bring out champagne and they would toast their liberators, and this went on every year until eventually all those veterans had died. So check out the story if you're interested in that sort of thing. Got one other little thing to tell you about that bridge, but I'm just going to get these nuts mixed first. This should make 24. Now I'm going to make more than 24 because I can't remember if I said, because I had more pecans, I did increase the quantities. The quantities I quite used for 24. Okay, and what I've just done is I've just calculated how big a ball, because I always overestimate the size of my balls. Okay, so I've weighed these out, and this should give me the correct number of balls. Okay, my one quantity works out at 36 grams. So make sure they're nicely spread out, although I'm not sure that weight's going to be right, because they to me look like they're going to be a bit too big. Given how many I've got left in here to make. So going back to the story of the bridge, getting many years after that first visit, we were some different friends, and we weren't camping anymore. We've gone beyond that stage now. Went beyond that stage a long time ago. And we were heading down Normandy way, but on the way back we went to Caen. I think actually we stayed overnight, because this time we got the ferry to Calais, and we went back to the bridge, and it so happened, we hadn't realised at the time, it coincided with, I'm just making that one a little bit small, it looks a bit big compared to the others. It coincided with one of the significant, I can't remember which one it was, anniversaries of World War II. And the town was packed. There was loads of veterans in, wearing their medals, everything like that. And Pegasus Bridge, by now, apparently, had been moved. They needed to do something to the bridge, but they said because it's so historic, they didn't just destroy it. They actually moved the bridge and put it on the land, and there's a new bridge in place there. And next to it, they'd built a museum, and they'd also put out markers where the gliders are landed, to show you literally how close these things are. They crash landed in, but the Germans didn't hear a thing. Apparently, if you read the book, you'll find out most of them got knocked out on impact. Not the Germans, the Brits. But obviously they all recovered. But it's quite amazing to see how close these gliders got to where literally it was a German on patrol. So check out Pegasus Bridge. If you can't go there, check out the story. Well worth it. So these are now going to go into that oven, and we're going to bake them until the edges are going golden brown, but for about 18 to 20 minutes, and then we'll bring them out, let them cool slightly, and then transfer them on a wire rack. Right, so I've just taken the last batch out, 3 of them. Here they are. Now just be careful, they do catch very easily around the edges. They're very quite buttery, and they spread, but I was okay, although because I was using my trays, I did find if I didn't get my tray in nice and flat straight off, the balls of dough were moving, and sometimes would merge, or trying to merge. None of them actually did. They get very thin around the edges, and they catch very quickly in the edges. So that's the plate there finished. These are just cooling off. Like I say, that one of my hot ones. They do catch a little bit around the edge, but let's taste one. That's a bit warm, that one. Very short, a bit crumbly, as expected, very nutty, because there's a lot of chopped nuts in there. It is basically a nice nutty shortbread. Which I don't think it'll last very long. They are very delicate, you do need to be careful with them, but there you go. for that special lady in my life. The cookie's named after her, apart from the pecan bit. Pecan Sandies. Yeah. I think I love you more, darling. Yeah, of course I do.